Okay, folks, Andrew Bopros here. Well, trade deadline is coming up here very soon. I want to talk a little bit more about some trade potential players we could go after for the Chargers. Interestingly enough, I just figured this out today. The deadline is November 5th, which is also the voting date for our big election that we have going on here in America at this point. So, too, so that's kind of interesting. Both very important days, November 5th. So go out and vote, guys. And, we stay, obviously politically agnostic here, but lots to discuss about where we think we could go with this team. And I think Jim Harbaugh and really Joe Ortiz, I think, are really going to make some interesting splash moves. I got a list of a few more people that I want to add to from last week that we could potentially go after. Lot to discuss and break down. So, guys, as always, let's get
Bull Bros.
Okay, folks, as always, like and subscribe if you do enjoy the content. I'm Andrew Bopros. And again, go out and vote, guys. It's one of our maiden privileges living in America, but please vote. It's very important. Obviously, if you have a particular candidate you want to vote for, leave a comment down below and let us know as to why. If you want to talk about things more sports related, let me know what you think of my list that I have here as well, too. But, a lot of people have, I've been reading everyone's comments and talking about, where this team is. I truly believe we're just a few players away from being an extremely competitive team. I think there's some rumors that Kamani Vidal might actually get some carries this week. We might even see some Brendan Rice, right? There's some conversations about players that have pretty much sat out all year that might step up and actually, contribute to this team against the Broncos, or Broncos, as I like to call them. But I do think we're just a few pieces away from really being competitive. So here's a couple of names that I do think this week are interesting to discuss, and I think this man can cook. The interesting thing is we have quite a few picks this upcoming year. I think we have 9 or 10 picks with comp picks. We have traded 1 or 2 off at this point, so we might have a little bit less. I think we might have 8 picks now since our last trade. But the one thing I will say with Joe Ortiz is that he has clearly stated he is fine going out and getting a player mid-year that he thinks can impact the team. I have feelings both ways on that, right? To some degree, I like the idea. Some degrees, I don't, because I do think it's tough to have a player that's been in a system elsewhere and then coming into your system immediately making an impact. That's a very tall order and not very common for most players to make happen. So let's go through a few names I didn't quite discuss. Maybe I want to reiterate again, I think might be a good choice for us to go after. I may even do another one next week, but I am trying to watch the trade wire, see the most interesting news popping up about trade rumors for the Chargers specifically. One of the guys that I did want to discuss here is Theo Reddick. I really like, or sorry, Hassan Reddick, not Theo Reddick, my bad. But he's obviously an outside linebacker. He's awesome, right? I've always been a huge fan of him when he was on the Eagles. He's currently on the Jets right now. Now, he has yet to report to the Jets and awaits a new contract, so he's not a happy camper, much like a Devontae Adams type situation. But, the thing about Hassan Reddick is he's a very good veteran edge rusher. And I do think that there's a lot to be said about him potentially coming to the Chargers, especially with Bosa out at this point. And again, bottom line, it's clear you could probably get him fairly cheap for a 1-year deal. And again, the longer he goes and he sits out for the Jets, which it doesn't look like he's going to play for the Jets at this point, then more likely they have to cave in and move and trade him somewhere. So, they're trying to recoup a draft pick, what they trade away to the Philadelphia Eagles either way. Now, I will say this, some of the teams that I've seen really potentially wanting, or rumors that want to get Hassan Reddick is currently the Niners, the Lions, and the Cardinals. I see the Niners. Do you believe they have a pretty decent amount of cap space, if I remember correctly? Let me just look at it real quick. Yeah, they have $55 million in cap space, which is bonkers to even think about. So they have a lot of money that they can spend. So I think he could be a good place to land. Plus, it's going to the Niners, very good team at this point, right? So, but I do think, again, me personally, I really like him. I think he would be a really good addition, even if he just came in mid-season and then signed elsewhere. During the offseason, we could potentially get a comp pick for him, get that draft pick back, right? So there's a lot to be said about this particular pick. Now, again, blanket statement, a lot of these players that I'm going to suggest this week are on their last year of their contract, or they're kind of not happy with their current team or current organization. So trading them could work out very well in both parties and could potentially be a splash player for the Chargers this season. So it's a pretty blanket statement, but I just want you to know that there are reasons why they are no longer or would potentially get traded off. So again, like this idea. Another one, an OG defensive lineman. I've always liked this dude. We obviously know what the Dolphins are in a bit of a stuck in a rut. They're struggling. But Calais Campbell, right? A lot of people, in fact, I think even remember people in the preseason saying we should go after this guy. But again, he's one of the greatest defensive linemen of all time, right? Now, again, we haven't had any injuries on the defensive line, knock on wood. Please, God, no defensive lineman injuries. But right now, the D line is looking great. But a guy like this, you could rotate in on third down, rushing plays. You just put him in on a rotation. I've always liked him. And again, he's literally one of the greatest defensive linemen of all time. He's still playing at a high level. He's 38 years old. And in the NFL, guys, that's old. But at the end of the day, man, he's still killing it. He's looking great. PFF scores look awesome. I'm a big fan of him. Again, really, the idea is maybe we put him on a contender before he retires, which I would assume he probably will retire this year, if not next year, at this point, right? But 38 years old, he's looking amazing. A lot of the trade candidates right now that are sticking out are the Lions, Falcons, and Ravens, from what I could see. Lions actually have quite a bit of cap space left, about $28 million. And I don't think the Ravens have a lot, if I remember correctly. The Chargers only have $8.4 million, so we don't have a ton. But at the end of the day, I really like Calais Campbell. I think he would just be an awesome defensive lineman that we could scoop up, and just a versatile space eater, right? At the end of the day. So again, I do think if injuries start popping up with the defensive line, he might be something. Again, November 5th, folks, go out and vote, and also trade deadline. So doubly important date for us Charger fans and American Patriots, of course. So another guy that I've always liked, and I think could be a good addition for us, and actually he's pretty young, is Azeez Al-Jawari. Am I saying that right? Azeez Al-Jawari, another offensive linebacker, right? Always an amazing. He's done great with the Giants. He's going to be a free agent in 2025, right? So the argument is they're not going to extend him. They're probably not going to go after him long term. So why not trade him now and get something, potentially in the future? Potentially a Bosa trade? I doubt that. But anyways, my point is, I digress. But my point is, I've always liked Azeez Al-Jawari, and I think he's an amazing guy. But I don't think the Giants are going to extend him. I think he's a good potential addition. Again, do the Chargers need a lot of help on edge? Not really. Again, with Bosa being out, it is a bit of a bummer. But, I'll say this. The guy is solid, man. I've always liked his gameplay. He's going to be a free agent, so I think there is a chance that they might try to just move on from him. I don't particularly see the Giants doing that great this season, right? Malik Neighbors is out with a concussion. It'd be interesting to see how it plays out. But some of the trade candidates are the Falcons, the Niners, and the Lions, right? I think three teams that look fairly, in the contention race. Now, again, I would throw the Chargers in that as well, too. We're 2-2. I think we have an opportunity to at least end up 10-7 this year as well, too. So, again, Azeez Al-Jawari, I do like this pickup if we do go after him. We shall see what happens. And he's a fairly young defensive end as well, too. So you scoop him up, maybe sign him to a 2 or 3 year contract. You would not need to scoop up a high pick for a defensive end next year. So if you really believe in him, could be a nice 2 or 3 year gap for defensive end, if we were to potentially part ways with Joey Bosa. And let's just be frank, Khalil Mack and Bud Dupree aren't exactly youngins, okay? They ain't spring chickens. So, I can see us potentially with injuries going after some of these defensive edge rushers. A guy I did talk about last week is DeAndre Hopkins. Now, the thing about DeAndre Hopkins for me, I feel like we need a little more veteran savviness, right? And we're struggling with that. And I think that's really where this wide receiver room is lacking. A little bit of leadership, a little bit of, veteran moxie, right? Again, he's going to be a free agent in 2025. We know he is going nowhere with the Tennessee Titans. They're not going to do much this year, right? Levis doesn't look like he's it, right? But they might want to get value now rather than let him walk and potentially get a comp pick. My thought is it makes sense to try and trade him first and just do sort of a dismantling at this moment, right? His PFF scores are actually really good. I mean, the Tennessee Titans are sitting at 1-3. And, he's 31st in team PFF grade. They're not making much noise. Titans are not looking good. He's 33 years old and he's been effective. He's got a 68.3 PFF scores in receiving, but he's only hauled in 10 catches for 121 yards. So again, at some point, teams have to look at their roster and say, okay, do we want to go with what we have now, or do we want to trade them off now, or do we want to let them walk and see if we can get a comp pick? In my opinion, it would make more sense to try and get a trade now. You just shop them and see what you can get and go from there. But again, I truly believe, he would be a good addition for the Chargers. I think that's what we're missing. We're missing a little bit of veteran presence as well, right? So wouldn't be a bad one for me, in my opinion. Now, the other one that I do like as well, and you guys actually brought me up on this. We talked about it last week. I left Amari Cooper off of my list last week. But I the more I think about this, Amari Cooper could be a guy we could go get, right? And again, Cleveland is looking okay, not great, a little bit of a dismantle year. He's a talented receiver. As we all know, he's a very good wide receiver, but he would be a very good veteran presence to bring on board. Look, Cleveland ain't going anywhere anytime soon, right? I don't think they look good. I think their quarterback room is a bit of a mess, bit of a disaster. He is also going to be a free agent in 2025. So I don't think the Browns are going to re-sign him. Again, much like DeAndre Hopkins, probably a good veteran we should go after. Thank you guys last week for bringing me up on Amari Cooper. I think he's good. So I do like the idea of us potentially going and grabbing him as well. And again, one good news bit as well, guys, is that Joe Alt looks to be ready to go versus the Broncos as well. Most likely playing left tackle, which I think is pretty interesting as well, too. So I just wanted to give you that final update. But it looks to be like he's trending upwards to be potentially playing versus the Broncos. And that's exciting news. So, again, what do you think of my list, guys? I think this is great. I'll probably talk more about tight ends and maybe offensive linemen next week as well. But I kind of wanted to wrap up some of the skill players, more of the flashy type of, folks that we could potentially go get in trades. But, again, I really do think that Joe Ortiz is going to be aggressive. He's going to try and make it happen. And he said this over and over again. We want to here. It's not going to be a wash year. We're just going to move on. And again, let me ask you this last question. Do you think we're one or two pieces away from being extremely competitive? I think we are. It could be a wide receiver. Really, it's a wide receiver is kind of what I think, right? I think Justin Herbert needs a little bit of help, maybe a second running back. That's why I think people talking about potentially Kamani Vidal starting or playing a little bit over, Gus Edwards this upcoming week versus the Broncos. So we'll see what happens with that as well, too. Or maybe even we'll see Brendan Rice out there. So there's a lot to be said of what could happen this week. But what do you guys think? Do you guys like this list? Are there people on this list that I should reach out to? Again, you guys brought me onto Amari Cooper as well. So I want to hear your thoughts. As always, Andrew, Bolt Bros. See you guys in the next one.
Hey, what's up? Cameron Dick here watching Bolt Bros podcast. Let's go.
Charged up, Bolt Bros on the night.